Hey guys, welcome back. It's Khadroth. Today we're going to be going over the second farming node of Christmas. This is going to be the assassin node. So let's go ahead and jump in. Also, just before we begin, don't forget guys, I do stream FGO 7 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday on Twitch. So feel free to check me out there and you can ask me any questions you have. All right, so for this first comp on the all assassin node, we're going to be going with Nito, Castor Umu, and Merlin and Waver. Castor Umu is really strong for this. I really like her. She's got 3 turn buff durations, and even at NP2, she is fairly good for this. There's no real trait damage to exploit here in this node for most of the comps that we're going to be using. So instead, a lot of it's just going to come down to the firepower of the individual units and their ability to charge or loop through it. As you guys can see, because this is assassins, we only need an NP1 Nito, thank God, as opposed to the Saber node earlier where we were needing NP2s and 3s. You can also sub out a Scotty for the Waver if you don't have one of your own, but the big advantage to using Castor Umu here is getting to be able to use Merlin as well. Merlin is a very good unit for any of these 50% chargers to be able to use, because he's just absolutely magnifying their damage output, and that's why you only need NP2 for this. Okay, so for the skill order here, we're going to be going with a front line of Nito, Castor Umu, and Merlin. Remember, the reason we're using Merlin first instead of Waver's Charisma is because we're going to allow for the ability to substitute Waver for Scotty depending on what the person has, even though Waver's attack buff would be stronger. So with that front line, our skill order is going to be that we're going to charge Nito to full. We are going to pop all of Castor Umu's buffs except her charge on herself, and we are going to use Merlin's attack buff as well as Merlin's third skill. We can actually get away with it here on turn 1. We're going to pop all of that on Castor Umu, and then we're going to go ahead and NP with Nito. On turn 2, we are going to be dealing with the bodyguards and supporters here. You're going to plug suit out Nito and bring in that Waver or Scotty. Castor Umu is already full at this point with the Kscope. She's just going to go ahead and NP. She should be able to easily wipe it out as long as you have NP2. If you have NP1, it's going to get a little spicier, but NP2 should definitely be able to clear, as you guys can see here with 100% rate. For turn 3, we are going to pop all of Waver's buffs on Castor Umu, and then we are going to pop Castor Umu's charge, and that's going to get her to 100%. Then from there, you just use the plug suit buff, and she should be able to easily kill everything here with only a mineral sparing Nito just a little bit. Also guys, don't forget there are quite a few units in here that have damage bonus in the node. Particularly for this one, you guys are going to see Anastasia has a 50% damage bonus. That is included in the calculations. So since Castor Umu was our only buster comp, now we're already in the arts comps, and you guys are going to see arts comps be pretty dominant here for this node. It's assassins. You guys can anticipate why that's going to be the case. Got a lot of arts casters in the game. Our first comp here is going to be a Anastasia, Paracelsus, Waver, and Tamamo comp. So let's explain. We don't really recommend using Scotty in place of Waver for this one for a couple of reasons, mostly due to how the charge is going to get split up potentially, but also just due to the fact that we're trying to get away with the minimum value of Anastasia that we can here. We tried to give you guys NP1 Anastasia with minimal skills. I know that's going to be the big problem that everyone's going to have with Anastasia, is all those bullets, those shells. We tried to make it so that at least you didn't have to go all the way to 10. So NP1 8 8 10 Anastasia works for this. We're also going to go ahead and assume that you have aerial drive, again from the prior event here with the Halloween rerun. You guys should all have that. No, it's not Nartzy, but it is something that at least is all attack and provides a NP damage modifier to the buff list here. Again, I actually really like Anastasia for this, and this is sort of a refund based comp. She is going to be able to pull this off, and you guys can actually see here, if you were to bump up her skills, the remaining health of these enemies would actually be even less, and if you have a higher NP level of Anastasia, she's probably easily going to kill. So this is a comp that you can easily get more out of. The big requirement that we're going to talk about here is you do have to have a rank 10 Paracelsus charge skill, and you do need rank 9 on his other skills. This is again because it's refund based here, so anything short of these skill numbers, Anastasia is really going to struggle to get that 50% back. I highly recommend you guys at least go to this distance. If you guys notice that you're struggling in wave 2 with that refund, you can pre-card as well. That is another one of the tricks of the trade here. If you card before an NP, you might get more NP gain after it due to over overkill. You would have to card the bodyguard in wave 2, again, just because of his high health. You're not necessarily going to kill him. That's why we recommend pre-carding him as opposed to any of the other ones, because if you waste a card on one of the other ones, you might not have enough to kill. The good news is everybody here is a caster, so everybody's effective if you do have to pre-card. Not a bad draw in terms of what you need for the node. So for the skill order here, we're going to start out with a front line of Paracelsus, Anastasia, and Waver. I recommend at this point using Paracelsus's first skill, second skill, and third skill already. Make sure you use the third skill on Anastasia, not on Paracelsus himself, but that should put him at 80% charge. From there, you can go ahead and use all of Waver's skills on Anastasia, and that should bring Paracelsus to full as well as Anastasia. Go ahead and NP with Paracelsus, and you should easily be able to clear the first wave. Now for wave 2 here, we're going to have Anastasia already at cap, but now I want you to plug suit and bring in Tamamo for Paracelsus. This should allow Tamamo to bring in stars with her, which should make the carding a little bit easier. Remember, you might need to pre-card the bodyguard just in order to have enough refund here, but you should be good for the most part. The goal is just to get back to 50%. So if you find yourself a little bit lacking, pre-card on the bodyguard just to be safe. It's got to be the bodyguard because he's the one that's probably going to live, and you don't want to risk putting a card on another enemy and somehow not killing the bodyguard after the fact if Anna's NP ends up short. From there, you've got Tamamo in. You're going to want to use Tamamo's third skill on Anastasia. You're going to want to go ahead and pop Anastasia's charisma at this point and NP. From there, you should be back to 50%. Maybe have to card the bodyguard, but oh well. So for turn 3, you should be able to pop Anastasia's charge skill. Make sure you're targeting Nito when you do this because Anna's charge skill has the chance to stun one enemy. It may save you if somehow Nito were to end up in a low roll type situation and would live because maybe you messed up the buff order or something. But from there, you're going to go ahead and pop Anastasia's arts up. You're going to pop the plug suit attack buff and you should be good to go. And Nito should barely live, if any. Okay, so for the next comp here, we have Davinci. Now, you guys may be noticing that Davinci is requiring NP2, and we're using a Kscope here. And the reason is because Anastasia has damage bonus, so she has a leg up. Even though Davinci has an NP interlude, it's not enough to make the difference, but I think you guys will find this comp is actually pretty easy as long as you have that NP2 Davinci. You are fairly golden, you don't have to invest too much here. A couple of the other notes here is we did assume Davinci's NP damage skill fails. Just like with the Tesla comp back in the Saber node, we assume the same thing here. So you guys are relatively safe in that regard. Also, I'm noticing just a little glitch here. Paracelsus is assumed to be NP5, so don't look at the NP2 there. This is going to be very similar to the Anastasia comp otherwise. The only difference here is Davinci has both a 50% charge skill and NP charge per turn. What she lacks in NP refund compared to Anastasia, she makes up for in automated refund with that skill. It is a flat 10% as well, so that's why you don't have to invest in it. So let's talk skill order here. In our front line, we're going to have Paracelsus, Davinci, and Waver. Because we're using a Kscope here, we're going to go ahead and only need 20% here on this first turn. So we're going to pop Waver's second and third skills. That's going to bring Davinci up to full. That's going to get Paracelsus to 20%. We're going to pop Paracelsus's first skill. That's going to bring him up to 100% at rank 10. We're going to pop his second and third skills, with the third skill going on Davinci. At that point, you're good to go ahead and NP. He should easily clear the front wave because again, this is casters on assassins. For wave 2, you want to plug suit, bring in Tamamo at this point. Again, with that comes stars, but you actually don't need it in this case as NP2 has a 100% chance to clear the bodyguard. You're going to want to take Tamamo's third skill, pop that on Davinci, and go ahead and pop Davinci's charge per turn skill. So now you should be safe to NP. He's going to go ahead and wipe out that second wave really easily. In turn 3, you should have refunded about 17% naturally, plus the NP per turn there should get you to up at about 27%. But again, those numbers are a little bit iffy. Either way, you should have Davinci's 50% charge now to pop, so go ahead and use that. And then you should have Waver's first skill, his 30%. So that should get you to where you need to go with at least somewhere in the 5 to 7% extra range there, so you should be good. Make sure you go ahead and try your hand at popping Davinci's NP damage skill just to prevent the need to card, but if you're fine with carding a lot of the time, you should be safe here as well. So pop the plug suit attack buff, NP, and enjoy your easy 3-turn farm. Now, the last comp we have here is the Sieg comp. We don't really recommend, mostly because it's a little bit on the annoying side to pull off. It's a lot of button presses. It's just very cumbersome. The good news is we're only requiring a level 20 Kscope, obviously NP5 Sieg as he's a welfare, and NP5 Arash. The hardest part about this is going to be the double waver and Tamamo requirement, as well as Sieg skill levels being 1010x. You don't really need his third skill leveled up at all due to the refund coming out of the back of wave 2. If it's all going according to plan with how we calculated it, a base amount of his charge skill at rank 1 is 20%. That combined with another skill is going to get him enough to get to 100% for that final wave. But if you did find yourself short, you could raise that third skill just a little bit, because again, he is going to work towards a 30% charge at that point. It's a decent comp if you have all the pieces. It's probably hard for a lot of you guys to have all the pieces for it. So we're actually going to start by talking about party order for this comp. Because of the fact that we're using both a rash and a plug suit, you need to construct your back line appropriately. Your front line here is going to be a rash, Sieg, and a waver. Your back line needs to be Tamamo and waver in that order. What you'll be doing is you'll be plug suiting out the waver for the other waver, and then when a rash dies on turn 1, he's going to bring in the first person, which needs to be Tamamo. So that's why the back line has to go Tamamo then waver. So you're basically going to plug suit over the top of her, and then Arash is going to bring her in. Now, talking about skill order here, we're going to start out, Arash has 0% charge, Sieg starts out with 80%. What we're going to do here is we're going to pop Arash's charge skill. That's going to get him up to 30%. You're going to go ahead and use all of the first waver skills on Arash. That's going to get Sieg to max. That's also going to get Arash to 80%. A note here, because you can technically get away with a imaginary element on Sieg instead, but we'd still recommend that you level it up as much as you can. The reason we're going to say that is because you can get away with a little bit more here, as your next step is to plug suit those two waivers, remember, like we talked about there earlier. Then with the new waiver coming in, you're going to pop that waiver's second and third skill. That is going to get Arash to 100%, but it's also going to take Sieg potentially over 100% if you were using a Kscope. From there, you're going to go ahead and NP with Arash. He's going to wipe out the front wave very easily. Before wave 2 here, you've now, because of Arash dying, brought Tamamo in. So Tamamo is going to use her third skill on Sieg. Sieg is going to pop his first skill, the NP gain skill, and Sieg is going to NP. You just need to be careful about the bodyguard. He should refund enough. You might want to pre-card if it's close, but post-carding is typically better, especially since Sieg's NP does defense down. From here, on turn 3, you're going to end up in a scenario where you still have waver's first skill left, so you're going to go ahead and pop that on Sieg. You're going to pop Sieg's third skill, that's his charge skill. Those two combined are at least 50%, depending on the level of Sieg's third skill. And then his refund off the back of that should have been somewhere in the realm of 50 to 54%. So you should be okay. From there, that should have gotten you to 100%. You go ahead and pop Sieg's arts damage up, and then go ahead and pop the plug suit attack buff, and that should get you enough damage to at least get in the cardable range on Nito Chris, with it killing 27% of the time. All right, guys, and that's going to be a wrap for the second node. Thanks for watching. Feel free to join the Discord. I'll put the link in the description below. Just make sure you assign yourself a role, otherwise the server will kick you, so please make sure you do that before you log out. We'll be back with the next one here shortly. So I believe it is the Lancer node, so again, shouldn't be anything too difficult there. Standard part for the course, just like the first node of Gilfest. So see y'all then. Thanks.